Robensio. Hello all, welcome to Robensio Training. It's a continued video for the course Advanced Network Exploitation Expert. Myself, Rikun Sindwad, and I will be your instructor for this entire journey. I hold over 5 years of experience in cybersecurity. I'm a red teamer at work. I also do security researcher and hold multiple CVs. Couple of articles are published over Pen Test Magazine, OSCP, OSW, and OSCP certified from Offensive Security. The course Advanced Network Exploitation Expert helps you to build core knowledge against network security and penetration testing. It is designed for everyone with the basic understanding for the cybersecurity domain, like basic networking and the basic pen testing things. An example would be anyone with the knowledge of CEH. Post completion of the course, you will able to gain core concept understanding over various topics, perform internal or external penetration testing, perform extensive network assessment, find security misconfiguration within Active Directory environment, able to do privilege escalation over Windows and Linux machines, write automation scripts, and many more to go. Please read the description before moving ahead with the course content. In the last session, we have learned different query. It was something quite close to the real world scenario, but it's not 100% identical. We started with something registration. So when you register to particular application, this query was what will gonna be executed, right? And when you log into some application, this is what the identical one. If you are accessing your profile, this is what the query will gonna be executed. And if you are accessing a random website, for the dynamic approach, they use something similar to this, right? And we have seen each and every query in detail. Now, today we will going to learn further things for the injection perspective. So let's say those are the user input. Instead of let's take this as an example. Author is what expected, and you will be entering your author name as a Robensio, and here the page number is what you are inserting. Instead of entering this as a 1, what if an attacker enter any additional character? So let's say along with that, attacker adds something additional, something like this. This makes a different query, right? With this particular semicolon, which is breaking the first statement and adding the next entire statement at the end. Now, what is happening here? Attacker is injecting their own SQL statement next to what your query is. And when this happens, so whenever your user supplied value, which is 1 this time, is not being validated, and if let's say I have a function that will going to check if user entered 1, then only go to the next block. If user entered more than the particular character number of character, then block the execution, then don't do the execution. This is what can be written. But if it is not the case, if those type of validation is not part of that, then imagine this would go a very critical, right? As user can inject their own query. So in SQL injection, it is something what it is. With the existing SQL statement, if an attacker able to inject their own statement, something what I'm injecting here, let's say select password from users, like that. If they able to inject their own query, then this is what the SQL injection is. Similar to not just for SQL injection, in general terms of injection, whenever if we able to inject something into something, then this is what the injection is. It can be also applicable for the drug injection, that what your doctor has prescribed, right? So let's say they inject drug into your blood vessel that will going to mixture with your blood, and it will result something as a good or as a bad if it is something the drug what I hope that you what I mean. So yeah, whenever the user supplied value like Robensive here, like one, like this email address field and this password is not being validated, and an attacker enters their own supplied value, and that will going to be executed here, then imagine this will gonna be very, very, very critical. Let's take another example here as this one. Uh, okay, let me remove this query. Okay, perfect. What it says, select user ID from user where whatever email address you have, you're gonna write it here, and password you have. So let's imagine that you don't know password of someone, right? But you know the email of that particular user, and you are entering a user as an email. Now imagine if there is no validation for this email field, like there must be an email and there must be some character limitation and so on and so forth. Then you can add additional queries here, like if they are using the double quotes, I'll gonna add double quote to balance this entire block. So what I'm saying to them, hey, select user ID from user where email equals to whatever your desired email is, and after which I'll gonna just add something like and password, let's say password is equals to, I'll just specify 1 equals to 1, or it can be 2 is equals to 1, which is true. This will result a true value, right? So it can be 1 is equals to 1, it can be 2 is greater than 1, or it can be 2 is not equals to 1. It can be anything, just a correct or just a true output I want, right? Now what will gonna happen? It will gonna check in the backend what I have inserted here is this much value. It will check in the backend as output of this particular query and result something. However, there are some additional queries which will gonna create a conflict. But what we can do in this case, we can just comment it out by just adding minus minus and an extra space. So if I see my user input here, user input, it will gonna be something this much. Let me just add a minus minus to comment this line. This is what my user input is. Instead of just entering robinsive.in as an email, I'm adding additional stuff to it, and that is and password equals to 1. Let's give it a shot. So I have already logged into my BWAP, and let's first select star from users, right? In the first case, what I'm gonna do, select ID from users where login is equals to, let's say, B, and password is what is equals to, let me just copy one of the value. If you're wondering why your plain text is not there, so by default your database uses hashing algorithm, and that is what in use here. This is what will gonna result some output, correct? Because this is the right value. There is any error, it's not the login or something, ID and the login, B is what the user is, unknown column B and where user where login is equals to, oh my god, my bad. So it must be supplied in single or double quote. So what I'm gonna do, I'll specify this single quote this time and password in a double quote. This results some values in the response, correct? And this is the right query. Now imagine that this is where you are entering your username or your email address as a B. Now, instead of B, what I can do is I can add an additional single quote, and next to it, I can add something like and password, if you wish to, of course, is equals to 1 equals to 1, and 1 equals to 1 is the true statement. Now, this other query or other block is still there. And if we go straight away in this situation, then it will going to result an error. And I will gonna be possibly and went to some kind of end loop. There is an error. The right approach to achieve this type of query execution is to comment the rest of the line. So what I'm doing here, inserting a value where username is equals to b and a password is equals to 1 equals to 1, that is a true statement, and commenting out the rest of the line. Now, as I have commented rest of the line, I might have to use, as I'm using the command line version, I have to use the semicolon here. Elsewhere, it will not gonna be ended. So now let's hit enter. Perfect. It worked. I get no error at all. It worked. It says there is empty set. So that's fair, as maybe password didn't match. Or what else you can do? You can just apply or here, which means that it will going to compare either one of the case where login is equals to b or password is what equals to whatever you specify here. So this is what it worked this time, where the login actually worked and the password is what the validate falsely validated here. So either one of the case did work. So there are two different ways. One you can use with the and the another one is using the or. So that's the reason I explained this and or thing earlier in the initial stages. There are so many things that we can achieve by just utilizing this type of query and injecting to the existing injection point. And one of the example that I would like to add here is from the git, not the git, what we could say, bwap or the bbox machine. So let me just navigate to it. It's 1:30. Let me log into bwap. I am already logged in. Let's select, let's say, login form user. Let's see what's the login one. Let's go and type B and password as bug. Does it works? Yeah, it did work. It says welcome B, how are you today? Now instead of this B, what I can give it a try is B and single quote to end that particular query. If I just add single quote and write any password, I might get an error in the response saying that, hey, something is wrong with this particular query. So B and after B single quote and rest commenting rest of the line. So what I'm gonna say, hey, login is equals to B or let's say 1 equals to 1 straight away. You can go with this way as well. Or what else you can do, password is equals to 1 equals to 1. This is what other thing you can go for. You can either add this password field or you can remove it straight away saying that 1 equals to 1. Not sure it will gonna work or not, but this is just a general idea. Let's try a random password. Let's hit enter. There is an error. It says something error wrong with the particular SQL query. B single quote and let's say R1 is equals to 1, just writing it as it is. Or maybe we can also give it a one more different way. So let me show you a basic example. Select a user, or let's say select ID from users where username is equals to what we are supplying here as a B and password is what, let's say, XYZ, right? So instead of adding that minus minus, which may fail sometime, we can go with the other approach as well. Like I'm adding B as a username and the single quote in order to make that different, or add my own query, and I can do something like or password, or let's say, yeah, or single quote. I just don't want to add password for now. Single quote 1 is equals to single quote 1. And now this query is entirely perfect. Now that means we validated this username checks entirely, like B and password is whatever we have. So this is what my user input, and this is balanced query, right? So let's give it a try. This may work or may not work. Of course, the last single quote is not part of it. Writing a password as, let's say, false, and here we go. Welcome AIM. It did work with random because we use the username was supplied here with the or condition, so it will consider either this or this one, any one of it. So that's the reason it's shown it as a AIM, which is the first user in that particular table. So there are other example which you can check here, like the search one. So in the search one, if you supply, let's say, any character, here what you get in the response. If you add single quote, it will going to break the query. And if you add this apostrophe along with minus minus, it will comment rest of the line. Of course, in some cases, if you add this minus minus only without an extra trailing space, then this will going to create conflict, because here there is a percentage symbol, and along with this minus minus it is creating an error. Hence we always prefer to go and add extra space next to that minus minus. Perfect. Now in the result it says no movies found. That's fair, right? We are not digging more into the SQL injection. I have planned it for the next topic, but I want you to be aware of the few things that how injection is actually working. So wherever you have the user input, and if you are not validating that, then an attacker could inject their own query instead of that. So this is what the main purpose for this particular video. And yeah, that's it and that's all. See you next time.